In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office, overlooking the Can of Worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. Welcome to a special evening edition of the show. I figured I'd let you enjoy the crickets out there. I am so glad you've joined me today. And we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this evening edition goes. See if you like the background noise. If for some reason you like me, check out the other show that I'm a part of called Flyover Plates. It is nothing to do with technology. It's a comedy podcast where we talk about the food and the crime of my hometown of Rochester, New York. And there are plenty of episodes where we will sit out in the back deck. You can hear the crickets, or a lot of times where we will go to a restaurant and you can hear the griddle in the background. It's so cool. So, folks, we are still rushing to get through these end of 2021 articles, and I think I'm going to do a couple of super catch-up episodes where we just read through the headlines. If there's something really poignant, then I will stop and read a couple excerpts from it, but we'll do something fun here. I want to pick up the pace of these articles, and again, if you love it, if you hate it, email me, let me know, mark@technosophy.com, and that's TEKNOSOPHY.com. I will change my email address to match my new business name at some point in the future when I get time. Alright, folks, so let's do this. WallStreetJournal.com, October 2021. WSJ News exclusive. Ransomware gang masquerades as a real company to recruit tech talent. WSJ explains why these attacks are on the rise and what the U.S. can do to fight them. And a criminal organization believed to have built the software that shut down a U.S. fuel pipeline has set up a fake company to recruit potential employees. The fake company is using the name Bastion Secure, according to the researchers. On a professional-looking website, the company says it sells cybersecurity services, but the site's operator is a well-known hacking group called Fin7. This goes to show you, folks, that anything that uses the word secure isn't necessarily secure. Okay? There are plenty of times that look at secure search. It's a horrific piece of malware. It's fully legalized. It infiltrates your web browser and hijacks everything you search for. Fully legal. It says the word secure, so I'm going to assume it's secure. Well, it's not. And really, any of these companies, right, just because they have a fancy website and they use the word secure and slather the word secure around places, doesn't mean they're secure in reality. And I would argue that a lot of these firms out there that claim to secure your computer and claim to whatever are just doing ancient threats. Even if they're not explicitly malicious like these guys are, a lot of these folks who claim to clean computers are using ancient methods. All right? Next up, I've got this little card in the mail from New York State. And it says, Mobile ID. Everything is on your phone. Now your ID is too. Oh, great. So now, not only are we rolling our credit cards into our phones, but they also want to put our driver's license, our identification in our phone. look, folks, that's a cool idea as a backup, but please don't ever depend on it. I don't even have to tell you don't ever depend on your phone. You all know how often your phone's battery dies, how often it crashes, how often it gets an update attack and it roasts itself in update hell where it's an eternal loop of update, reboot. You all know this, all right? That's like saying trust Bozo the Clown with your business or whatever. Actually, I do love Bozo. I got my nephews into Bozo the Clown over the past year, and they actually love those old 70s shows. If any of you have any recorded episodes on VHS, please let me know, because there are only a handful of episodes on YouTube. All right. So look, it's just all this stuff, right? It's a cool idea to have it in your phone, and maybe they do something where even if the phone battery dies, you're still able to use the NFC, the near field communication chip in the phone, like the Tesla supposedly does, right? So now I get it, all right? I get it. It is a tempting offer to replace everything in your pocket. I got a lot of stuff in my pocket, all right? I got my wallet. I got my keys. I got my house and office keys, car keys. Then I've got my huge smartphone. Apparently all these smartphones are becoming humongous. I want to go back to my iPhone 7 that's extremely tiny. So I got a lot of stuff in my pockets, right? My buddy Phil used to walk around like a janitor. He had a huge key ring of stuff between his house and his office and whatever. I get it. Folks, it's tempting to want to consolidate everything into your cell phone, but it is the least trustworthy out of all the things in your pocket. All right, so if you want to have a little pocket on the back of your phone where you can roll up dollar bills and stick your credit card and whatever, that's cool. But if you use Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, whatever, and you use Tesla or some kind of EV where you've got the car key into an app in your phone, and then you got this New York State ID. We all know how secure the New York State IT department is, right? And all this stuff. So if you want to integrate your phone, that's fine if you have like a secondary user in the house, or hey, I'm just going to go out for a while and put my phone in my pocket, whatever. But please don't rely on it, because all of this stuff is a house of cards. In my next book, I spend a little time talking about how it's layers upon layers upon layers of houses of cards on top of houses of cards on top of duct tape, bubblegum, and Bondo. And balsa wood. All right. Next one. This is SeattleTimes.com. Hello, Seattle. This is Dr. Fraser Craig. November 2021. Facebook to drop face recognition system and delete face prints of more than 1 billion people. Remember how you would look at your photos on Facebook and you'd hover your mouse over it, and it would, if you could tag your friends in it, that's fine. And luckily people are giving up on that. They don't spend as much time tagging their friends anymore, because I guess it's lost its novelty or whatever. But this thing would start to auto-attack, and it would start auto-detecting people's faces and then imposing those suggestion attacks, where all of a sudden you'd hover your mouse over and it would know who your relatives were and all that. Very crazy. So I am really glad that they are dropping this. So, growing concerns about the technology and its misuse by governments, police, and others. Of course, they always have to have that biased thing. Oh, you can't trust the government, but you could totally trust Silicon Valley. Yeah, sure you can. Yeah, no problem at all. It's the government you got to worry about. It's the people with the 20, 30-year-old computers you got to worry about, not these new, rapidly evolving, soulless beasts. All right. Against growing societal concerns, especially as regulators have yet to provide clear rules, because regulators are 90 years behind Silicon Valley, its new name, Meta, for Facebook. The change will help it focus on building the next iteration of the internet, the metaverse. All right, I might have talked about this before. Basically, the metaverse, earlier versions of it around 2008, there was something called Second Life, and it's still kind of sizzling along. It's still running. But back then, I feared that it was going to just take over the world, where people were going to sit at their computers and walk around this 3D alternate world called Second Life, right? It's your second life. And luckily, it didn't catch on that much. So Facebook wants to give it another go and try this idea again in their own way, calling it Meta, which is metaverse is just a generic term, meaning a universe inside of a universe. And look, it's one thing if you want to have a 3D world that belongs to everyone, right? That's basically what the internet is. It's just this thing that belongs to everyone. It's like a bazaar, right? Where you just go and pitch a tent and you can sell your stuff. However, the idea that Facebook wants to implement is that they control the entire metaverse, right? They want to literally take over the metaverse. So I just squashed a bug on my desk. All right. It's just like they want to do to us. All right. The next iteration of the internet is the metaverse. And again, that's okay if that's the next thing. It's terrible by itself, but they want to control all of it. The company is also facing its biggest PR crisis after leaked documents from a whistleblower showed it had known about the harms its products cause and often did little or nothing. All right, so Facebook knew about the massive amount of societal harm, and I'm sure they're very specific, acute things like addictiveness or low self-esteem in teenagers, that sort of thing, but I always talk about the greater picture of just the overall worsening of society thanks to social media. Anyway, so they're already talking about that. We're already starting to slowly discover how damaging social media is if abused, right? It's fine if you check it once a month or whatever and say hi to faraway friends. Or I personally love Reddit. I got into it during COVID, and you make new connections with Reddit. Hey, look, you got a business? Hey, I can help you out, whatever. But anyway, so if Facebook is that damaging already, just from typing sentences and having political battles with people, then imagine how damaging it would be if you were sucked into a 3D world, right? They bought the company Oculus in the hopes that they were going to use these 3D headsets only for their world, right? Only for things that they control. It's a good example of trying to make product decisions that are good for the user and the company, said Kristen Martin, a professor of ethics at Notre Dame. She added that the move also demonstrates the power of public and regulatory pressure. Thank you. Please, folks, it's not regulatory pressure, it's public pressure and awareness. Facebook's parent company, Meta, appears to be looking at new forms of identifying people. What? So Facebook facial recognition wasn't bad enough. They're going to come up with something even more sinister, right? Leave it to them, right? I hate to say it, but it's okay. We're going to stop doing this, and then we'll do something much worse. Remember the Google history scandal? Google said, hey, y'all don't like us reading all your emails? All right, we won't do that anymore. How about something much worse? We're going to now log every website you ever go to. So we're going to move away from this kind of broad identification and toward narrower forms of personal authentication. Really? So what that actually means is they're going to identify you based on your typing patterns and your private messages, and they'll identify you based on your Authenticator app. All right, there's this new scandal called the Authenticator app, and it goes in your phone, and they say, we're going to make sure it's you. You have to click on the Authenticator app so we know it's not someone trying to log in as you. But really, the Authenticator app is the first step toward consolidation of power, consolidating your identity into this app. That's the hard part. Implanting that in your head later on is the easy part. All right, so that's another thing that I talk about in my next book. All right, keep going here. Researchers and privacy activists have spent years raising questions about the tech industry's use of face scanning software, citing studies that it found it worked unevenly across race, gender, and age. All right. One concern has been that technology can incorrectly identify people with dark skin. Okay. Hey, guess what? This stuff is racist. It should all stop right now. Hey, folks, if you want to drop the racist card on anything, drop it on Silicon Valley right now, please. And remember, Microsoft had a problem with their Xbox Kinect system where it couldn't recognize darker skinned people. So that's that. I played it once. It was sort of cool, and it I was dark enough that it had problems looking at me. Cute, lighthearted story moment. So my buddy has kids, and 2 of them are twins, and he just got them into computers recently, and the twins are able to unlock each other's laptops with their faces. So that's pretty cool and hilarious, but also brings up a good point, right? You can unlock your relatives' computers. And again, folks, it's the dumbest idea in the universe because nobody has ever heard of consequences. My industry has never thought about, hey, what if you die and your people need to get into your computer? Guess what? Not allowed. Always use a real password only on your computer. Don't use any of this evil face recognition garbage, because if you die, no one will be able to get into your stuff ever, and you'll have a battle against Apple on your hands. Or a battle against Microsoft, which is impossible because there's no way to get a hold of them ever. Alright. Facebook found itself on the other end of the debate last year when it demanded that facial recognition startup Clearview AI, which works with police, stop harvesting Facebook and Instagram user images to identify the people in them. So here Facebook did all the harvesting of all the faces in the world, pretty much, and they got mad because Clearview AI decided to use Facebook and Instagram's data for their own purposes. And it's an abusive relationship where Facebook's basically saying, hey, these are my people to abuse. Leave them alone. So they found themselves on the other end fighting against them. Meta's ambitions for augmented reality technology, in which the company envisions future users strapping on goggles to experience a blend of the virtual and physical worlds. Alright, so remember I talked about Second Life and Metaverse and all that. It's an online 3D world that you walk around, and frankly, it's pretty boring. I know people who try to do 3D conventions where you walk around, and the idea is cool, but it's so 90s, if you remember the show Beyond 2000, right? It's blasé, I think that's a word. And anyway, so what they're trying to do now is do augmented reality, or Microsoft calls it something else. That's right, they call it mixed reality. So what they're saying is you have real reality, and then you have these goggles that you strap on so that you can see little heads-up display of what's going on. Like you can see arrows in front of you in your glasses. So you can look at the real street in reality, but then there will be arrows to tell you where to walk, or the name of the song name that's playing in your head, or whatever. Sort of cool. But look, as a guy who grew up with technology and who used to enjoy it, it's sort of cool. But the problem is, after 2012 or so, all of these companies dangled these cool things in front of us as a means to control us. By the way, really good news. It looks like Microsoft ends the AR category it created and leaves mixed reality to Apple, and that's December of 2023. Windows Mixed Reality will soon no longer receive support. And that's from techradar.com. So that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. I love when this stuff falls apart. Again, it's a cool idea, but just no. So, Meta's ambitions for augmented reality technology, or mixed reality if you're Microsoft, in which the company envisions future users strapping on goggles to experience a blend of virtual and physical worlds. Those technologies, in turn, could pose new concerns about how people's biometric data is collected and tracked. Right? I mean, putting on a pair of goggles has nothing to do with tracking your biometric data, but whatever. They will find ways to abuse you. That is the point. They believe that is the whole goal of this, is to abuse you to make money. And it's sad because you could actually make money by making some constructive, productive thing. Facebook didn't provide clear answers when asked how people could verify that their image data was deleted and what the company would be doing with the underlying face recognition technology. Look, they got what they wanted. All they were trying to do, in my speculation here, is they were trying to perfect facial recognition technology so they could train their AI on it. right? And they figure, all right, we're done now, and we'll just toss all these face pictures, and you won't even know if they're deleted, because whatever, we're not even going to tell you. Amazon, Microsoft, and IBM last year ended or paused their sales of facial recognition software to police. And Facebook earlier this year agreed to pay $650 million to settle a 2015 lawsuit alleging it violated an Illinois privacy law when it used photo tagging without users' permission. It's that whole do first and ask for and apologize later kind of thing. So that's that. Done with that nonsense. All right, a couple more real quick and we'll get you out of here. So this is XIM Technologies, XIM Technologies, and this was November of 21. I sent this to myself in order to remember to talk about it. It's xim.tech. XIM is simplicity. XIM's simplicity and flexibility is also second to none. Its philosophy is to empower the gamer without bombarding them with unneeded complexity. It's quick and easy to set up your preferred gaming environment through our smartphone and tablet companion app. Even more, XIM will give you real-time feedback to help you find your optimal settings. For the most hardcore gamer, XIM offers additional advanced options for further intricate refinement. Alright, simplicity, 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 simplicity. And then we have apps and companion apps and feedback and AI stuff and advanced options and intricate refinement. So pretty much you are not simplicity. Let's see if they still even exist anymore. xim.tech. They exist. Gaming input adapters. Okay, so they make controllers. Alright, cool, whatever. So look, if you're going to portend to be simple, then be simple. How about that? Yeah. All right. A couple more. 9to5mac.com, June 2021. Apple news and Mac rumors breaking all day. With iOS 15, your iPhone is still traceable through the Find My network even when the device is powered off. All right. With iOS 15, the phone is not really fully powered off. It stays in a low power state and acts like an AirTag, allowing any nearby iOS device to pick up the Bluetooth signal and send back its location. This also means if your iPhone runs out of battery during the day, you still have a chance of finding its location for a few more hours. In fact, Apple says the location tracking will even keep working whilst the phone is reset to factory settings because of activation lock. And that's what I call the iCloud death grip scandal, where even if someone erases your phone, it's still tied to your Apple account forever unless you have a battle against Apple to sign out of it. And the whole goal there, of course, is not to protect you, it's to protect their own best interest, because then you won't be able to resell your phone. So it just happens to be a little convenient thing there. Usually Apple does not advocate using Find My features to fight against theft, right? Because that's the only real reason it was actually used for, folks. So they're saying, yeah, we got this thing on here that allows us to locate the iPhone, and even if you try to erase it, we can locate it. Don't actually use it for the theft thing, because that's not the real purpose. The real purpose is for them to locate us and to lock our stuff so we can't resell it. So there you go, folks. Apple is telling us don't actually use it for those express purposes, those excuses, because they actually know what it's for. All right. This is a newsletter, June 2025, from the Free Software Foundation. And I support them, and I've talked about them before. There's Free Software Foundation and Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I talked about how the EFF they're both about open source software, right? Being able to customize your software, knowing the recipe behind the software, as opposed to the Apple and Microsoft stuff where you have no idea if they're spitting in the soup, so to speak, right? So I'm a huge proponent of free software. And I like all that. Electronic Frontier Foundation, they send out newsletters, and I talked about them before, how they get a little nitpicky and they go off on political tangents. But Free Software Foundation says, They talk about, since 1985, we've continued to fight for our mission for user freedom, and blah, blah, blah. We are often criticized for our insistence on freedom, and so on. And I think I know where they're going with this, is that they're criticized probably for being nitpicky, where they talk about freedom, but they insist that everything needs to be free. And I've told y'all before that, look, if you insist that 101% of all software is free, you ain't going nowhere, right? You ain't gonna find, that's like if you're a vegan and you insist that the entire planet goes vegan immediately. You ain't going anywhere, okay? So look, it's a good idea. Yes, we all want free software, but I'm totally fine using, for example, I use Mint. It's a flavor of Linux. And you know what? It has 2 or 3 or 4 little pieces of closed source software inside of it. Who cares? Who cares, folks? I'm not going to be a nitpicker to my own detriment. You get what I'm saying here? Cut off my nose to spite my face, if that makes sense. I'm going to use it because it's 99% good, and eventually you deal with the other stuff, right? You deal with the low-hanging fruit first. First, we have to get humanity away from Microsoft. Then we worry about the nitpicky details about these little scraps of remaining software that we have to deal with. These folks pigeonhole themselves, these open source folks, a lot of them, where they go to an extreme and they refuse to participate in society if some website happens to use something that they don't like. All right? Anyway, so that's what's going on there. So the newsletter, the chunk that I highlighted says, we continued blocking, fighting, and educating on how to counter the continued web scraping, DDoS attacks, right? The denial of service attacks that have come with the rise of machine learning trends to our and many other organizations. Imagine 5 million unique IP addresses or 5 million computers crawling our site at once. It requires a serious upscaling of our defenses, and you can read more about it in our bulletin. So what they're saying is, actually, I think Free Software Foundation was the one that does all the tangents. I don't know, but I think they're the ones with the tangents. So what they're saying though here is that you've got all this AI, right? And all these bros are saying that AI is the be-all and end-all, and it's going to help everyone, and it's a panacea, and don't worry, there's no downsides at all, don't worry. But in reality, these AI bots are already going around the internet and wreaking havoc. In this case, they're trying to crawl all over the Free Software Foundation website and most other websites. They're hungry for information, so they're visiting the website. So imagine if you had 5 million people visiting your website at once, your website would buckle under the pressure. The server, the computer that holds your website, simply could not respond to that many requests at once. So effectively, it becomes a DDoS or denial of service attack. In the past, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so, we've had these DDoS attacks where a bunch of computers are all programmed to attack a website at once simply by making a request. They make requests in mass. So if I have 1,000 computers and I point them at some, let's say, some small business website, yeah, they're just by the sheer number of requests, even if they're making innocent requests of, hey, can I see your website? Hey, I'm here to look at your website. Hey, I'm looking at your website. Hey, I'm looking at your website, right? It'll be crushed. Just like if some business has millions of people in the parking lot, right? There was a business locally and the pizza was so good, there was a line of cars down the street. And I'm friends with the landlord, and we were talking about this on the phone. He said, Mark, I got this guy. He's a tenant. He's a pizzeria. He's in my building. And we got a line of cars down the street. The city's mad at me. I'm mad at him, blah, blah, blah. So that's your analogy for this DDoS attack. So before it was just happening with simple computers that were programmed to target a website. Now it's just millions of AI computers out there just crawling, quote unquote, innocently crawling along and trying to hoover up information. All right, that's enough for me. Stay tuned for more. Like I said, we're going to try to skim some headlines next time and get through at least the end of 2021 here. My name is Mark Anthony Arena. You can find a preview edition of my forthcoming book on thecomputerexorcist.com. Go over to book the link that says book, and then there's a little sentence. It's like a hidden sentence at the bottom that says, hey, you want to buy my forthcoming book? It's right here. So tell me what you think, folks. The book, the preliminary title is called Don't Be Taken by Silicon Valley. Hope you love it, and we'll talk to you next week.